Hey, welcome to the Razzle Dazzle Show, a podcast where we talk about our favorite video games and all things pop culture with an emphasis on our favorites. We're your hosts, Jared and Mauro.
Hey, my name is Mauro. This is my voice. This is Mauro's voice that is attached to Mauro.
And today's episode is on the Assassin's Creed Trilogy, technically Pentology. Assassin's Creed is a historical action-adventure video game series published by Ubisoft and developed mainly by its studio, Ubisoft Montreal. The series features historical fiction, science fiction, and fictional characters intertwined with real-world historical events and historical figures. Let us know what you think about this episode somewhere on the internet, and be sure to follow us on Instagram at Razzle Dazzle Show, on TikTok at Razzle_Dazzle_Show, and on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Raz_Daz_Pod. And with all that being said, it's Razzle Dazzle time! Assassin's Creed is a weird-ass freaking series, man. I'm just gonna start it right there. It's so weird. There's like aliens and stuff, like what? Like there's religion and there's aliens and then there's history.
Yeah,
okay?
It tricks kids into learning about history, but then once the parents have seen it and they're like, okay, this is nice, this is historical, I guess. It starts introducing the Illuminati and like some ancient civilizations. I mean, Jesus Christ was technically a character in the lore,
yeah,
who just was able to do all these miracles because of one of the gameplay mechanics, the Apple of Eden. It's insane. No, you're right. It's weird. It's definitely weird. It got weirder as the games progressed, but
very much so. Let's start at the beginning, which is not correct in terms of the overall timeline of history, but Assassin's Creed 1 takes place when? What's the period? I forgot.
During the Crusades. I believe it's 1191, I want to say, the year. Let me see. I know it's 11 something. It's the Third Crusade, yes. It is 1191. It is 1191, yes. Yeah. It takes place in the Holy Land. You get to visit cool places like Jerusalem and Damascus and Jordan, and you get a horse a little bit.
That's one
cool.
of the key points. You get a horse. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. I don't recall. I used to think, because that was not the first Assassin's Creed game I played. So I remember playing Brotherhood first, and then I played Revelations, and then I played 3. And in 3, you get a horse, and I'm like, wow, they added horses to the game. That's so cool. They had a horse in the first one.
So how long did it take for you to get to Assassin's Creed 1? Or have you played it?
I have played it.
Okay.
It was a game that I knew about when it came out, but didn't get to play it until around I was like 14 or 15 or something like that. I got it on sale on Xbox One, and I just want to talk, it's got amazing graphics for 2007. Let's just from the get-go. I try not to harp on graphics a lot, especially with older games.
For real.
It's not something that I look into, but there's a part of me that when I see this, I try to put myself in the shoes of the people who were playing the game when it came out.
Right, exactly, as you should.
Right. And for some games hold up, some don't. But for this game in particular, I mean, it has better graphics than Assassin's Creed 2, the one that came afterwards, 2 years later. So for 2007, I mean, this game was graphically amazing. I love the glitchy aspect that it has, because technically the majority of the game takes place in the Animus.
Yep.
So, it's got all these, it's got the glitches and the technical filter.
Yeah.
But then even in the modern day, a lot of the actual gameplay, you see it through a camera that's watching Desmond, which I think is pretty cool. So it's got a technological aspect feel to it, which I bet felt super futuristic back in 2007. But
yes. I think, funnily enough, it's very dated.
Yeah, now it is.
Even it's not a remastered, or I guess the enhanced versions that came out later, still, it's the eyes, man. The eyes, very character. It's just you know what I mean?
On the outside it looks real nice, but then if you actually zoom in, especially during cutscenes when they're talking, it is definitely a product of its time.
Yeah, and that's not to knock it or anything. It's just an observation. But this game definitely laid the groundworks for, of course, the rest of the series, but it also solidified a lot of mechanics used in action adventure games now. So like yellow paint when you're playing Horizon, the new Tomb Raider games, or even Breath of the Wild, you can see the clear innovations that Assassin's Creed brought to the table. You can see it happening here and now.
That's true. The color-coded little highlights and stuff, it felt... I like how it made sense, because that's technically what Desmond was seeing as well. You know, you're in the Animus, you're seeing all these things, but it was a nice little way of incorporating a gameplay mechanic into what, like, the story of the game. I love it when games do that. I love it when games do that. But it was this was your first and so far only Assassin's Creed game? Yeah,
so I have Assassin's Creed 1, Revelations, and Black Flag. I haven't...
Oh man, you monster, you haven't played Black Flag. What's wrong with you?
I haven't touched Revelations or Black Flag. Revelations I bought for like $10 years ago, and it's still in the wrapping. Like, I texted you a picture of it.
Typical gamer move.
And yeah, I played Assassin's Creed 1, I think, up until the second guy you kill. I don't know why I stopped. I remember having fun with it. I think it's just because school and time and other games are coming out and stuff like that. Because when was this? I remember when I first started playing it, it was in middle school. Because I remember like the first week of me playing it when we had PE together. And you know, coach was just letting us do whatever we want. You know, I would wear my hoodie and just, like, you know, wrist stab.
That's
people,
true. That's true. That was going on a lot. In our middle school, there were a lot of kids. For some reason, there was just this giant Assassin's Creed wave where they would put the hoodies on and then, like, sit down on the benches, like on the hide in plain sight thing. I wasn't even super big into Assassin's Creed back then. I had played Brotherhood, and that was about it. But I think I might know one of the reasons you might have stopped playing, which was one of the same reasons a lot of people stopped playing the first one. Even though it has an amazing story. I mean, Altair is a super interesting protagonist. It's not my favorite game. It's not even in the top 3, but it does have one of the best stories. However, the gameplay loop, a lot of fans will agree with this sentiment.
Oh, I see.
Is incredibly repetitive. I mean, even for back then, it's incredibly repetitive. So essentially it goes like this. You go into a new city and you have to follow some people around. You have a target already, right? But you don't know where the target is or what to do. You just have a name and a vague idea. You have to follow people around. You have to eavesdrop. You have to listen. You have to pickpocket people for information. You have to run people down and force information out of them. And eventually, you essentially do an investigation of sorts. And once you have all of the investigation ready, you know who this person is, what they look like, where they're going, where they spend some time, why they're doing the things that they're doing. Or maybe not why, but you get a bigger idea of what it is that they're doing. You go to the Assassin's Bureau to ask permission to kill this person. They give you permission, and then you go to the area, and then you perform the assassination. That is the only bit of variance it is, the actual assassinations, because some of them you have to jump from up top, some of them you blend through the crowd, some of them you have to chase the person down, but everything else is exactly the same. You do this like 9 times throughout the entire game.
Yeah.
Go into a town, gather information, pickpocket, eavesdrop, ask permission, kill, rinse and repeat. 9 times. That's crazy.
I think also a part of it is just, you say that you like the story. I think the story like never really stuck with me. I think the story of like, oh, you need to kill these people to prove your worth or come back, or, you know, whatever, for acceptance back into the guild or whatever. That's okay. My biggest problem with the series is everything that happens in the present, right? Everything in the past, love it. It all makes sense. It all fits well. cool, love it. But it's all the Desmond stuff, all the Animus and whatever, you know, like all that type of stuff I really don't care about. Whenever I get taken out of the Animus and play as Desmond, I feel like I'm being taken out of the game.
Yeah. It's I agree and I disagree. I agree in the sense that the majority of the games have a really boring modern day storyline. I think I only enjoy the ones in 3, I think, and then like the very last end part of Brotherhood, because it gets a little. It's I'll talk about it later on, but the Assassin's Creed games. I mean, if you want the storyline, the modern day storyline, just go to YouTube and look at the cutscenes. I feel like there should, like, all of these games should have an option to like toggle modern day off, because you're absolutely right. You'll get invested and you'll be following the story, and then you'll be having a good time. You'll be following along, and then just as like you forgot that the modern day even existed, it just pulls you back in the most randomest of times, and you're like, oh right, I'm in a temple and I have to walk around for 20 minutes
and talk to the same 2 people for like another 30. Especially if you're going for like completionist route, there's an achievement where you got to talk to, what's her name, Lucy or whatever, like
Lucy, yeah, every
single time you get pulled out of the Animus, you have to talk to her for a certain achievement, and that's not fun to me, you know, like. No. Later in the games, Desmond learns or gains ability of his ancestors, and you get to do more stuff with them. Yeah, that's cool. But I'm also not here to play as Desmond. I'm here to play as these assassins in these time periods, which is the main draw of these games. And I think Assassin's Creed 1 does an amazing job of laying the groundwork, setting the formula for everything else. And I think it's A New Hope. It's episode 4. It doesn't do anything super special. It does exactly what it needs to do to set up for the rest of the series.
I think A New Hope did quite a few things that were super special. But I understand your sentiment overall. No, but yes, no, I agree. The modern day in Assassin's Creed 1 is, in my opinion, the weakest.
Yeah.
It is the flattest, the most boring, the one that a lot of times during my first playthrough of it, I stopped playing the game for a couple of days, because every time I would hop back on and like boot up the game, I would be Desmond in the thing and I had to do something, and I'm like, never mind. I want to play something else.
I'm not feeling it.
I'm not feeling it. Yeah. But actually, I don't even think I ever beat Assassin's Creed 1. I might not. Maybe I did. I can't remember. I might have. I know the story. I don't know if I actually beat it. Right. However, the story in the past, in the actual Assassin's Creed time, it gets better as it goes along. It's very choppy at first. Yeah, Altair is a master assassin. He breaks all 3 tenets in like 5 minutes, and so he gets stripped of his whole rank and sent out into the world. That's the premise. The actual story, though, is that as he's going, the guy, the big boss, I forgot his name, Al-Mualim, maybe?
Sure.
Sure. You. Could be, could not be, who cares? The master of the Assassin's Guild, which is actually in a castle, by the way. Sorry to cut this off. If you're a hidden organization, why do you live very publicly in a castle in the middle of a town?
So
they get besieged in the very first mission.
Yeah, I remember that.
The Templars. You're not hiding in plain sight. Why are you? You're taking out Altair? Okay, whatever. But he gets sent. He's like, okay, so this is how you're gonna redeem yourself. You're gonna go out into the world and you're going to kill these 9 people, because the Crusades are tough and they are really just ruining everybody's vibe right now. So you go out and you kill a Saracen, you go out and you kill a member of the Templar Order, not the secret Templars, but like the actual Templars. He had a crucifix and everything. You go ahead and you kill different people from different areas who are actually warring against each other. But as you kill them, Altair starts noticing, he's like, hold on, you guys are all saying like very similar things. Like a lot of you aren't really upset to be getting killed, because they keep talking about it's for the greater good. I've done my part. Everybody that comes before me will do theirs, or everybody that comes after me will do theirs. And, he starts getting kind of understanding this, and he goes back to his master, and Al-Mualim says, yeah, these are all Templars, not the Templars that you're familiar with. They've actually created a secret order where they're going to rule the world with this thing. And then he takes out an apple. And
It's not even an apple,
is,
it's an orb.
It's an orb. It's an orb. It's called the Apple of Eden, who's with supposedly... Adam and Eve also. Like, that's lore for later, but supposedly, if I remember correctly, I think that Eve didn't bite into the apple, but this apple was just very powerful, and then they just stole it or something.
It's trying to retell the origins of the Bible, and not the origins of the Bible. I mean, like, you know, the origin story of mankind.
The story of
Adam and Eve.
The origin of mankind. I think it's still pretty. It does a good job of retelling some things, and it kind of fumbles others. You know, it goes off the deep end, but overall, the main story for Assassin's Creed 1 gets progressively more interesting, for me at least, up until the very end, where you finally kill like the head Templar dude, and he's like, "Ha! It wasn't even me. It was your master."
Yeah,
he's had the apple this whole time. What do you think we were trying to do? You know?
Yeah, ultimate betrayal type of thing too. And you know, within that process of killing these people, yeah, Altair starts to put together, oh man, they're connected in some way. That's strange. And then conspiracy. Oh man, my master's been a bad guy this whole time. Betrayal, and then showdown.
Showdown. You fight him. You win. You win.
Yeah.
It's a simple game. It's set the groundwork. A lot of the people that played it back in 2007 were fascinated enough with it. With Altair as a character was actually, I think, because the gameplay itself is redundant, even for 2007 standards, it was way too repetitive. And the story, you have to really pay attention in order to get into it. And like you said, even at the points where you are getting into it, you get sucked out of it. And then you're Desmond and you have to walk around a closed room and like brush your teeth and look at a camera or something for 10 minutes before you get to go back. But Altair as a character is, in my opinion, super, super interesting, very intriguing. One of the most, I mean, he can come across as bland at the very beginning, but he's a very proud person who kind of has to humble himself. And then through this journey of humbleness, everything he knows gets flipped on its head, and he has to essentially become selfless and go ahead and be like, no, you know what? Maybe what my master is saying isn't true. Maybe I do need to take charge here a little bit. He was an atheist in the Holy Land in 1191. I mean, this guy was just counterculture as hell. But overall, I personally believe that if the game had come out today, it would have flopped. It would absolutely flop.
Yeah.
But for what it, I guess, represented back then, I'm glad that it was able to get people excited enough so that Ubisoft could make a sequel. And the sequel, in my opinion, is the heart of the series and why the series even continued on to this day.
Definitely, yeah. The best parts of Assassin's Creed 1 is doing your assassin duty, like stalking, parkouring throughout the cities, and like, you know, coming up, sneaking up to people and killing them. That's like what you're there for, and it's awesome. And yeah, Assassin's Creed 2 takes everything that's good about the previous game and runs with it. Like, graphics wise, like, it looks better. There's added mechanics, like, other than just a simple parkouring and stabby whatever. Also, the combat is very early Arkham. You know, it's very counter. All you gotta do is counter.
The counters. It's got. I can't remember if the free flow came in Assassin's Creed 2 or in Brotherhood, where if you kill an enemy, and you know, you could just move on to the next one and the next one and the next one, and then you're there.
I thought until it was Syndicate.
No, that was. I definitely remember that one in Brotherhood at least. But it was a very early rendition of what you get in Syndicate.
Right.
Where you essentially, look it up. It's like the free flow combat. You essentially you're fighting an enemy, and then, you know, you can move on to the next one and to the next one to the next one until you get interrupted. If you get interrupted, then it's like, okay, whatever, you know, you got to start again. But the combat did improve. You're absolutely right. It brought you could fight with your hidden blade now. You know, you had multiple weapons, not just the sword in AC1.
Right. Yeah.
The world was actually not... Okay, so in Assassin's Creed 1, it's not really open world. It's just a bunch of hubs connected by, like, a very linear path.
Like a trail, yeah.
Yeah. Assassin's Creed 2 has, like, 3 cities or 2 cities in Rome or something. And, like, outside is just... It's open. It's open for... You could just run around. I can't remember if there's a horse
I think so.
I think there's okay.
There might
so
be.
Assassin's Creed 2 probably had a horse as well.
Yeah. Altair didn't become interesting to me until the Ezio trilogy happened. Until Revelations, when Desmond is living the memories of Ezio that's living the memories of Altair.
Inception in the Animusception.
But yeah, I think overall the Ezio trilogy, best story, best combats, and like best in terms of like innovating. Like it just gets better and better, you know, as the game.
And it actually gave the protagonist an accent that fit the time period. I don't know if you noticed, but Assassin's Creed 1, not only did Altair and Desmond have the same exact face, Altair spoke with an American accent.
Yeah.
You had what? Why?
Because he's the descendant of this guy, or this guy's the ancestor. So you gotta see the connection, or else it's not believable.
I might have missed the connection when he sat down in the Animus, and then he became this person, and then they said, "Hey, this is your ancestor." I'm sorry, that might have been my fault. I needed them to have the same exact face, and Altair to speak in a clear American accent, while surrounded by all of these Mid-East accents. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ubisoft.
What are your favorite parts of the Ezio trilogy?
My favorite. Okay, so I like the fact that it takes place over a longer period of time.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes, Assassin's Creed 2. I don't know how many years, but I know it's like a ton. It's a lot of years. You see Ezio grow up and mature and stuff. I like the combat. The combat is fun. It's very simple. It's essentially meant to bring in the most basic of gamers. It's nothing crazy, nothing super complex, nothing like new or it was slightly innovative, but like nothing crazy where you had to like level your character up in certain ways and level up things like later on in later games. But it's still fun. It's mindless fun. I love just jumping into a group of people and then just like hacking and slashing. And then you use wait, did they have a smoke bomb in 2?
Yes. There's a smoke bomb.
The smoke bomb, yeah. That was fun. I also like the fact that it was like, okay, so AC1 was grimy and sandy and darker by design, and Assassin's Creed 2, it always felt like spring.
Yeah, I think that's also another thing that kind of turned me off from 1. It's just the gray saturation of everything, especially in the present.
It's like a 2000 late 2000s issue with video games, dude.
Yeah, and movies too. That's just like the product of its time, literal product of its time. Ezio was born in Florence, Italy in 1459 and died in 1524. So yeah, we got to see him grow and live out his life for that entire time. And I don't know about the rest of the series after 3. If we ever spend time with one of these assassins for that amount of time. You know what I mean? For like 3 full games.
Definitely not that long.
Okay.
The only one that I can think about that spans more than just like a couple of years is Connor in Assassin's Creed 3. I was gonna say the unfortunately was for the unfortunately was for Edward, Assassin's Creed 4, but then I realized that Connor, like, you only spend like 5 or 6 years with Edward. With Connor, you do span quite a few, but it's not even like the entirety of his life. By the time it's over, he's only like late 20s.
Right. Know? Well, I also mean like in real world time, 3 full games with Ezio Auditore.
Oh yeah, no. Okay, yeah, definitely not. We had 3 entire, like, this was, I don't know why Ubisoft loved Ezio so much to give him an entire trilogy in only the second game, but it's fine. It's okay.
Yeah, right.
It was the second game. And you're like, okay, so it's a new character, you're in a new area, and you kind of think that you got the gist of where this new franchise is going. You're thinking maybe, in the 3rd game, maybe they're going to go somewhere else. Maybe we'll have like a different, the Endo period in Japan, or maybe they'll go to Egypt, or maybe they'll no, they just stay right there. They stay in Rome, and you play as Ezio again. You're like, okay. So he had 2 games. His story's finished. Let's see what else we do. It's Ezio again.
Are you telling me that they haven't gone to Japan yet? Dude,
no,
a ninja assassin?
Actually, I don't know if they've gone to Japan. They've gone to China. Now they have. Assassin's Creed Red, I believe. There are two. There's one that's like a side scroller that has 3 games.
I hate it.
Or 3 protagonists. Hate it. Yeah, no, it's not an actual entry. So the side scrollers have a Chinese assassin, a Russian assassin with a gun, and an Indian assassin, which in my opinion looks like the coolest, but they're side scrollers. That's it. They're not actual like main entry games. And I feel like we could have gotten those other games instead of Brotherhood and Revelations. Not bashing Brotherhood at all. I just feel like if you're gonna like you spent 20 something years with Ezio in the second game. You could have just, if you wanted to, you could have told his whole story there. Whatever.
Ezio is definitely the most fleshed out character in this entire series, I think. It's just, you get to learn so much about him. You get to go through so many of his hardships, and I still think that it's cool how it starts off as a revenge plot to then actually no, 2 and Brotherhood are revenge plots.
That's true. That's right.
Because there's the Pope guy and then his son.
His son.
In the third game is just like, oh wait, my ancestor Altair left these things. They can't fall into the wrong hands. I gotta deal with it. Them now that I gotta go make sure everything is safe, and then the Apple of Eden is a thing that I still gotta deal with. But I do like that within these 3 games, to help tie it with the Desmond stuff, whatever's happening in the present, I think it does a way better job of slowly leading you with breadcrumbs to this whole revelation of the origins of mankind and stuff like that. You know, Ezio gets to meet Juno, or whichever one it was, one of the holograms.
It depends on the game. So every game in the Ezio trilogy, at the end you meet a different one.
Really? That's right. You meet all 3 of them.
In 2, you meet Minerva at the end. And I don't know if I can't remember if it's like a hologram.
It's a hologram.
Or it's a hologram, right?
They're all holograms.
This is weird because some of them later on, they actually are talking directly to you, but they're supposed to be dead. Like this is a pre-recorded message. It's confusing. I don't know if
AI.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There we go. Okay. No. Yeah. That makes sense. Thanks. Thank you. Problem solved. I don't have to make a Reddit post about it now. Thanks. Yeah. The modern day definitely got better. In 2 you start because of the bleeding effect, which was a cool little way of saying, hey, Desmond can now do everything that Ezio can, and this is the explanation. He slept as him too much. You actually start parkouring and stuff, which is pretty cool. And in Brotherhood, you go to the villa where Ezio used to live, and you actually visit the places that Desmond is visiting in the past, but in the present. So essentially, in Assassin's Creed 2, I think you're mostly stuck in one area in the modern day, but it's still you still get to move around.
Yeah, no, that's Revelations.
That's Revelations. Okay,
yeah.
Okay. Oh, but hold on. Assassin's Creed 2 though had this little issue that I wasn't a huge fan of, which was where you had to collect. It wasn't a collect-a-thon, but all Assassin's Creed games have collectibles. However, one of these collectibles were codex pages that. It's actually there's a whole cutscene about it and everything. There's a wall. And it's like, hey, you got to get 30 codex pages. And you probably run into 5 throughout the actual game if you're not looking. But then when you get to the very last mission, it will not let you access it until you have all 30. And the game doesn't tell you this.
And if I remember, the reward is Altair's armor, right?
Yeah. Well, that's,
other good
yes.
weapons, like legendary weapons.
Yeah, no, it is. It's Altair's armor. You get Altair's armor at the end, and every time you collect the little codex page, you see a clip of Adam and Eve running away or something. Yeah. I mean, I might be getting 2 types of collectibles mixed up, but it's something like that.
No, I'm pretty sure that's right.
Yeah.
Someone will correct us.
Yeah, somebody, exactly. Let's read the comics. Parkouring is a lot funner in the Ezio trilogy than it was in AC1. You have these tighter buildings and you have crowd blending now too. In Assassin's Creed 1, you could pray with monks.
Yeah.
But you would have to follow them. in Assassin's Creed 2 and onwards, you can, as long as there's no line of sight when you're running away from guards or something, you could blend into the crowd and then they won't see you. It added more options. If it made me feel more like an assassin, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, okay, hide in plain sight, sure. Even though you're wearing the flashiest armor out there, it's like, oh, whatever. He's a
he has a hood on. That's it. Yeah, he's a monk or whatever. He has a hood on. Got it.
Monk. The flashiest monk in all of Italy, but whatever.
And I just like the locations a lot better in the Ezio trilogy. It's
Dude.
more interesting. We get to see like Leonardo da Vinci. Like we get to
Da Vinci. We get to fly in one of his death traps.
Yeah. So this trilogy is a perfect capsule of like actual history, kind of like this is how actual historical events and figures get to play into this brand new game, into this brand new world. You know what I mean? So like I think how they weaved everything, how Ubisoft weaved everything to make it work, I think it went well. I
mean, yeah, it definitely felt like okay, so looking back, I don't believe they intended to make 3 games, but they, like, for example, for when you play Brotherhood, you have essentially, it's the same game. The gameplay is pretty much exactly the same, just a little bit refined, and it's actually smaller because it only takes place in Rome.
Right.
But the story's better. Is it better? Kinda. I like the story in Brotherhood more than 2, even the modern day. But then, you hop into Revelations, and Revelations is just a closing act.
Yes, for both. And it feels like it too.
It does. It's not just for Ezio, but for Altair too. I guess it was Ubisoft's like little apology to him. It's like, hey, I'm sorry that this guy got 3 games. You want to share a game with him? Maybe.
Yeah, and because of all the things we've seen in Revelations for Altair, I'm like, oh, this guy. There's actually more to this guy than just like a cocky bastard. There's some actual stakes that this guy has to go through. There's some rivalries with his like best friend or whatever. He lost his entire family because of this guy, and
yes,
and
that's Altair's thing, right? The rising and the falling, and the rising and the falling. It's like he likes the pain, No, but it's true. He does it fleshes him out a lot more. He had a relatively basic arc in the first game.
Yeah.
And in Revelations, you could see that at the end, when we stopped playing, it didn't really stop for Altair.
Yeah.
He rose to the ranks, and then he lost everything, and then had to leave again, and then he slowly built it back up. He built the codex by which the following assassins would eventually follow,
Yeah.
And I mean, his death is crazy. We'll talk about that one when we get to Revelations. But I wanted to touch on a quick little, because when I get to Revelations, I'm going to just give a quick little summary, just because I find the story funny.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why. But in order to do that, let me talk about the ending for Assassin's Creed 2 before we jump into Brotherhood for a second. So Ezio eventually meets Minerva, or a hologram, And before that, not only does he spare the main villain of his own game, because revenge is not the way. I guess it's him growing as a character.
Yes.
Or maybe this is him slowly finding out that he was a character in a video game. By Revelations, he 100% knows he's a character in a video game. Okay. The Ezio trilogy is him coming to terms with this. So here's how it starts. It starts at the end of AC2. He does not kill the Pope. He does not kill Borgia, because revenge is not the way. Bullshit. It's because he knows. It's because he knows that Borgia was not supposed to die yet, and that he had a later whatever. He goes and he meets Minerva, and Minerva tells him about the history of mankind, about the first civilization, about how they had a cataclysmic event, and how there's going to be another cataclysmic event in the future. And then she talks to Desmond. She speaks directly to Desmond, which blew my 10-year-old mind back
through Ezio, yeah.
Yeah, but so like at this moment, Ezio kind of knows something's going on. He's like, oh, wait a minute, was I not the one that's supposed to come here?
Then what the hell am I doing here? What have I been doing this whole time?
But he heard that name. He's like, Desmond, okay, damn. And it never leaves his mind. In Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, Ubisoft clearly, you know, they started capitalizing on Ezio's success. I think maybe when they were making this, that was supposed to be the end of Ezio. And I think it would have been a pretty tragic end, because this dude, he's gone through the entire game. He finally meets Minerva, and he gets the literal secret of the universe thrown at his face. And then she talks about Desmond, and his last line is like, wait, who's Desmond? And he moves to the
who? Without the
modern.
next two games, just like he lives the rest of his life in confusion.
Who's Desmond? Am I Desmond? Luckily, though, in Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, Ubisoft decided that he was not going to do that. Instead, he was going to continue being an assassin for a little bit until his house, the little city that you spend all of Assassin's Creed 2 kind of building.
Yeah, right?
For a lot of people. I didn't. I actually paid no attention to the little fortress. I'm sorry.
You gave zero shits about rebuilding your home.
I think I might have built up like the armory and the weapons thing for better weapons, but that was about it. But yeah, I don't know who built it though, because when I popped up on in Brotherhood, it was amazing. It looked way better than
how you left
mine
it.
didn't too. So yeah, so you know. See, we didn't have to do anything. It all got done anyways.
The magic of sequels.
But yeah, his house just gets like drone striked by Borgia's son, and he kills
his uncle?
Uncle Mario.
Woohoo!
Here we go. Here we go again. Another revenge story. He like makes his way to Rome, clearly having learned nothing about no, revenge is bad. Oh, you killed my Uncle Mario? Never mind. I'm back on the revenge train. So he goes to Rome. Machiavelli, who was also in the second game, which it's weird to have him be part of the assassins. I mean, I think it gives the assassins a little bit of realisticness. Is like, yeah, they're not all the good guys, you know. You have some shady characters, but Machiavelli brings him into Rome, and he's like, hey, listen, dude, so that guy that killed your uncle and blew up your house, surprisingly enough, he's also like got Rome under oppression. And the premise of Assassin's Creed Brotherhood is, okay, so I'm going to overthrow the Roman government, and maybe get some revenge on the side. Like I said before, the gameplay isn't really that different from Assassin's Creed 2, but it's called Brotherhood for a reason. Yeah. You got the Brotherhood recruitment system. Yeah, you get to also be mentors to new assassins, and like you get to see them take down their kills and stuff, which I think is pretty cool. For like, yeah, you should feel like a seasoned, a veteran in this world because of the events that happened in 2, which also reminds me that like the kill list for 2 isn't just like, hey, you got to go kill these guys to prove yourself. No, it's like these other assassin mentors are secretly training Ezio to become the best assassin, period. And then we see that in Brotherhood, who then in turn teaches and mentors other assassins that he also recruits. So like, I like that a lot. It's a great way to tie both games together in like a obvious but also subtle way. It feels very natural. It's like the natural progression. Yeah. You know, you shouldn't feel like... See, a lot of games have this issue where by the time the sequel comes along, or like the third game in the entry, when you should already be the biggest, baddest bad, you are essentially starting again at level 1. And it's like, I had this issue when I played The Witcher 3. I love the game, by the way. But, you know, you're Geralt of Rivia. You're supposed to be this seasoned veteran monster hunter, yet you have the weakest armor possible. Low-level monsters are a big threat to you. And just because there isn't like an explanation, like in Metroid, an explosion causes you to lose all your abilities. Okay, sure. There you go. Yeah. But not here. No, not in The Witcher 3. So in it doesn't matter once you New Game Plus. But so I feel like that's the canon. But in Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, it introduces new mechanics that Ezio didn't have before, which was the recruitment and all that stuff, and you have a reason to level these people up. That reminds me, at the beginning of the game, after that whole ambush, he leaves for Rome on the back of a horse. He faints. He gets saved by this lady or whatever, and he doesn't have all his gear from the first game.
But that's a good reason or a good
right.
explanation for that, but he still retains all his knowledge.
Yeah, he retains his knowledge, which is why he can pass that knowledge on forward. But yeah, he doesn't have his armor and stuff, which is cool.
Yeah.
It's good. I like that. I like that a lot. It makes sense why his robe is white here, when in my version of Assassin's Creed 2, it was black and red, but whatever.
Yeah.
I do like the recruitment thing. I think that's my favorite part of Brotherhood.
Yeah.
That and climbing the Roman Colosseum, that was pretty fun. But the recruitment thing, you can level them up. You can have them do things for you, like, they can distract guards or like assault spies, or just go ahead and like silently take out people that are too far away from you and just overall make it better. Or you could just keep recruiting them and leveling them up and stacking them up and not using them until you have a full roster, and then you just call them all in all at once. That's pretty fun too. just send them all in.
You're building your own clan of assassins. Like that. What else can be cooler than that, for these type of games? It's awesome.
It is. I love the fact that this game had it, and I lament the fact that other games didn't really do this too much.
Well, I mean, in some ways I can understand, like being an assassin, you're like by yourself, but also not, like there's a lot of solidarity when it comes to being an assassin, I guess, but also there's a lot of camaraderie. So it's a weird balance.
So there are certain games where it would have worked and some other games where it wouldn't have worked.
Right.
Like in Assassin's Creed 4, it wouldn't have worked because you're a pirate.
But you still have a crew.
You have a crew, so when you're fighting other like ships and stuff, their crew is there with you. But when Edward like docks into town, I'm guessing the crew goes off and like goes to
party,
a tavern
do
or whatever,
yeah.
And then he does his assassin stuff. He doesn't really have anybody to call on,
right?
Because he's not. No, I can't even start talking about Assassin's Creed 4 right now. This is not. I love it. I love the Brotherhood aspect of it, and I love the fact that it actually does play into the story.
Yeah.
A lot of games struggle with story and gameplay segregation because there are things that you'll see a cutscene and you'll be screaming at the screen because you're like, okay, well, no, just call in like the 12 dudes that you have. I know I have them. I have them right there. You know? Pull up this tab and call them. At the end of Brotherhood, Ezio sees I forgot his name, but like the new villain, the son of the villain from AC2.
Yeah, his name is also Borgia.
Yeah, Borgia. That's it, Borgia Jr.
Yeah.
You see him kill Borgia Sr. from AC2, and you could see that he's more about power and control than being a good Templar, if there even is a good Templar. We'll talk about that in AC3. But Ezio finds the apple before he does. He uses it to dismantle Borgia Jr.'s entire army. And
I think his name is Caesar.
Caesar, that sounds right. Cesare, something like that. Caesar.
Cesare, Borgia.
Let's call him C's. So he dismantles C's whole army. And the last little showdown is, C's shows up with like a couple of his people, and then you as Ezio have a couple of your people, your recruits, and then it's like a team deathmatch 6v6. That's pretty fun. He doesn't die by Ezio's hand though. He does, just like way later. He gets arrested, and then a bunch of years later, he dies because Ezio pushes him off a cliff during a fight.
He's like, Caesar was like, I will not be killed by man, and Ezio's like, then I leave you to fate or whatever, and just lets him fall off a wall.
Yes, that was a cold line. That was pretty cold for Ezio.
Yeah.
It was also after this where Ezio continued to realize that he was a video game character. Now hold on a second. The modern day storyline for Assassin's Creed Brotherhood is the last half of it is what got me into modern day. I didn't really care about the modern day in Assassin's Creed 1. Assassin's Creed 2, it was just kind of like I tried to speedrun that to get back to the game. Right. Luckily, in Assassin's Creed 2, it's not super invasive. In Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, though, you got the whole crew. We haven't even mentioned them. So you got Desmond. I think we mentioned Lucy. You did mention Lucy because of the completionist thing.
Yeah.
You have her. You have Sean and Rebecca, which are characters that I don't really care for too much, yet they show up in the most games. And they're looking for the Apple of Eden again, and they're just they just keep dropping Desmond into the Animus to see if he can find it. eventually, right after kind of going back and forth and Da Vinci coding throughout Ezio's little adventures, he finds that they find out that like the vault is in Rome, so they go to Rome, and Desmond talks about another hologram. This one is Juno. She tells him about like essentially the same thing that Minerva told Ezio in the second game. She was like, listen, our civilization was damn near extinct. Another cataclysmic event is coming that's going to happen to you guys, and humans are doomed, but you got to do something about it. And Desmond is like, okay, what do I do? And I don't think she tells him, but instead he finds an apple, and he walks into the chamber, and he picks up the apple, and then time freezes.
Mm-hmm.
And then Juno possesses Desmond, and then he stabs Lucy in the side, and then they both fall. And then that's the ending of that game. Now, I'm not a huge fan of just like shock cliffhangers, but when I was 12, I thought that was the best ending ever. And so, you know, that's how that game ends. How do you feel about that type of ending? Because you've said that the modern day isn't super engaging regardless, but how do you feel about that type of...
I'm trying to see first before I answer, like how far apart these games were to each other. So Brotherhood came out in 2010 and Revelations came out 2011. Okay, so about a year. It's a definite like what the f*** moment, right? Like why? And then there's a suspense, and I guess for the time of knowing like, oh wait, there's gonna be a sequel next year, you're gonna see why, what happens, and all that stuff. Everything's gonna be explained in the next game. So you're like, okay, I'm excited, anticipation, whatever. But like now in 2024, over 10 years,
just about.
It's knowing that that's how a game ends. It's kind of like it's just big cliffhanger. I'm not the biggest fan of it. I also don't hate it so much. You know, I'm kind of indifferent about it. I will say that the Desmond portions for Brotherhood is a bit better because we get to still have, I'm pretty sure still have sections of like parkouring and like actual assassin stuff in the modern day. So that's fine. It's not just targeting people in the building. So I don't hate it. It gets more interesting now because of the lore behind the Apple of Eden and like the people who first came here that made humans and this and that. Like it's getting interesting. Yep. But again, my biggest issue with this entire series is like I would also just love a game where we get to play assassins in certain time periods. There doesn't need to be this whole alien conspiracy thing. Is it needed? No. Is it interesting? Yes. Do we need an explanation of why we can play as these people in these different time periods? No. We can just be like, hey, this game series is called this, and each game is going to be taking place in a different time period. Cool. Are they connected? Maybe. But like, you know, it doesn't have to be so forced, and that's it.
I completely agree. When you boot up Red Dead Redemption, you don't have, there's no like, so this is the story of John Marston, and the reason you're, seeing this is because somebody is writing a documentary.
Yeah.
No, you're a cowboy in the Wild West. That's the setting.
Here's a story.
That's the story. Here it is.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe Ubisoft kind of really overreached with them wanting to do both a historical fiction-esque
and a sci-fi thing
game series, and then like a sci-fi thing with aliens and
but it's also cool and interesting at the same time. Like, but I don't know.
It is
both two really cool concept, but like it doesn't have to be mashed together. It
doesn't mesh together well. It is. I mean, maybe later on once they get their footing, but still, definitely in these early games, it was still a little jarring. I just don't know a lot of people that I personally love Desmond, and if I want to experience that story, I would just go into YouTube and then watch the story, the cutscenes. But it's weird that it's interconnected with the games.
Yeah.
There's one game, the only one that I still believe has done it correctly is Assassin's Creed 3.
We got to finish up Revelations.
Yeah, we might as well. Okay, so Revelations is quick though. Revelations, it's essentially just a closing chapter for both Ezio and Altair. Yeah. Ubisoft wanted to give Altair a little apology and a goodbye. You know, sorry that we devoted three games to your successor. Here, you can have a little bit of the limelight here. The gameplay itself, it's nothing to it's just Brotherhood again.
Yeah.
You know, with an older Ezio. But the story, in my opinion, is really where it shines.
Of
it
course.
has a lot of lore, not dumped on you, but it introduces it in a natural way because you're learning these things as Ezio is learning these things. And it's pretty cool. You get to see the end of both Ezio and Altair's Altair's ending, you know, like the story is that Ezio is looking for some keys to open up a vault that has a secret library that belonged to Altair. Boom. Double whammy ending. Closing acts, you know, there isn't, like, for the first half of the game, there isn't really a central antagonist. It's just Ezio going around, like, collecting keys and assassinating people. But then later on there is one, but he's not super engaging. But it doesn't really matter because you just kind of want to get from one place to the next so you can see what happened with Altair. And yeah, he has somebody named Maria who's helping him, which, if I'm not mistaken, was also the name of Altair's wife.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
I think I might be incorrect here, but I think that's the little connection there too. But it, you know, like we talked about earlier, in some Animus Inception mumbo jumbo, Ezio reads books and then he actually lives Altair's memories. Yeah. While Desmond is living Ezio's memories. And, you know, we get to see the rise of Altair to master of the Brotherhood, his fall again, you know, with essentially all of his family except for like one son dies, and then, you know, his return to power. And he has a gun now too.
He has a gun.
Like a hidden gun. What? Okay. I don't care. Rule of cool. Whatever.
It's just very Indiana Jones moment, you know, like, come fight me. Yeah. All right. Bam.
Okay. That was fun. Yeah. At the end of the game, Ezio enters the library and then reads a lot. Just kidding. There are no books. There are no books in the library. Instead, he finds Altair's corpse sitting down, holding a manuscript page. It was very reminiscent. Have you seen Treasure Planet?
Yes.
You remember that scene that I'm talking about where they actually get to the treasure vault and then there's the skeleton of Captain Flint? That's what that reminded me of. Love Treasure Planet, by the way, one of my favorite movies. But, you know, he finds his corpse sitting there, and then he gets to see the end of Altair's life, where essentially Altair dispersed the Brotherhood, had them go to different places, which is the in-universe explanation as to why, after this point, there are so many different sects of Assassin's Brotherhood in so many different areas, which is pretty cool. They had like a London branch, they had an Indian branch, they had a Chinese branch, they had the Egyptian, you know, all these places, which is pretty tight. And then he locks himself in the library and sits down and dies. Yeah. So at this point, Ezio knows he's in a video game. He knows he's not the real protagonist. So he decides to leave the apple exactly where it is. And just kind of to hammer this point home that he is 100% aware that he is in a video game and he is not the main protagonist of said video game, despite being a playable character, he talks directly to Desmond. He talks to Desmond, even though he doesn't know who he is, because he's come to terms with the fact that the story is not about him. And this is, like, jokes aside, he does come to the conclusion that he's just like a cog in a machine. He does know this. But the way this interweaves with the modern storyline is pretty tight too, in my opinion. Because, so the modern storyline is different. It doesn't really, Desmond, instead of interacting with his regular crew, he's not really interacting with anybody. He's interacting with the subconscious of somebody who is dead, I want to say, only alive in this thing. Yeah, so at the end of the last game, Subject 16, right? Clay. Yeah. At the end of the last game, after he stabbed Lucy, he falls unconscious. His dad shows up and comes in with a crew of assassins and then just dumps his body into the Animus. Father of the year right there. So, you know, he spends the entire game in this thing called the Black Room, which is just like where his subconscious lives, I guess, in the Animus. And then, you know, he meets Clay, and Clay is like Yoda on crack or something, because I think he helps him learn some things, but I can't really remember what it is.
You need to achieve the sync nexus. You gotta do exactly what Ezio did 100% so you can be fine.
You need to synchronize. You need to 100% this game, player. Or maybe Desmond also knows he's a character in a video game. Who knows? Clay definitely knew, and you know, he knows it so well, and he knows that his role is to assist the protagonist, that when the Animus starts getting deleted, he hugs Desmond and then pushes him out into the Nexus, saving his life, sacrificing himself, saving his life. And in the Nexus, Desmond meets the last the third first civvy.
Jupiter,
thank you. Jupiter tells Desmond at this point that, like, yeah, the cataclysm is happening. And then he's like, yeah, I know. I've just been told like 3 separate times the cataclysm is happening. What do I got to do? And he's like, all right. Fair enough. So there's this temple in New York, and you got to go there. And I'm not going to give you any more information, but that's the temple that you got to go
there.
To. Go there. Go to New York. And, he wakes up and he's surrounded by his dad and the crew minus Lucy. I don't know at what point we find out, but the reason Juno had Lucy killed was because she was a Templar triple agent. Yeah. So she was originally working for the Templars, betrayed them, or at least pretended to betray them, worked with Desmond to find what he was finding, and then, she got killed before that. I think I read somewhere, I don't know how true this is, but I think I read somewhere
that's a cutscene that happens in one of the games.
Yeah. No, but I read somewhere that the reason this happened and the reason it felt so abrupt was because the voice actress for Lucy was having some issues with Ubisoft or something. And then they just had to cut her. I don't know how true that is. I just remember reading that, but that did feel very abrupt. This character, Lucy, that seemed very, integrated into Desmond's story, to just have like such a random offing like that. Yeah. It's kind of, yeah. But at the end, Desmond just wakes up and tells them that they need to go play Assassin's Creed 3 to see how all this ends.
Kristen Bell. That's who she was. Kristen Bell. Yeah. Okay. She's an actress. I've seen her around. Okay. Really good.
Before we jump into Assassin's Creed 3, which I am...
How do I feel about the end of the Ezio trilogy? Yeah. It's a great... Like I said, it's a great full-rounded story for Ezio, the most fleshed out character in this series. The actual ending of Revelations, just like Desmond wakes up and all he says is like, I know what we need to do. Yeah. Credits. It. Okay. Yeah, no, I get it. You're all right. You're going
we gotta play the next game.
Yeah. No, like the Ezio trilogy is fantastic or highly regarded for a reason, and I think the main reason is the story. I don't think it has to do with the gameplay. I don't think it has to do with the new mechanics that gets introduced in each game. I don't think it has to do with the actual modern narrative. I think it just has to do with Ezio himself as a person going through these challenges in his life. Everything else doesn't matter in terms of like why this trilogy is important. It's Ezio. Ezio is the character that has been well defined, and we actually see him grow into, like, he was the first he was like, yeah, he's a little cocky, full of himself, like, I have sex with many women and I am the greatest. And then we get to see him get humbled
hard.
As his love interests die in both games, in the first 2 games. But we in Revelations we get this older, more wise and more respectful Ezio that when he meets Maria, he's not just like straight out flirting, hey, I want to sleep with you, whatever. I'm actually falling for you. We have some interest. Like, it's great. He gets an ending. He gets a happy ending where he marries her, gets a family with her. He dies while on a bench while they're grocery shopping, sadly. But
But he lived a full life.
He lived a full life.
He was old. His hair was white. Yeah. His beard was white. He lived a life, and I think that's interesting that we literally see Ezio from birth to death. That is crazy. And it's the only Assassin's Creed protagonist that we have gotten to see essentially his entire life. Yeah. Obviously, barring the in-betweens, we saw him from start to finish. We saw who he was, who he became, and who he ended up being. And we saw none of it happened off screen. None of the real changes. Yeah. Everything that shaped him, we experienced. Yes. And that's why I feel like that's why a lot of people are into Ezio as such a, like Ezio is my favorite character, not mine, but definitely. A lot of people go, yeah, like Ezio's like my favorite protagonist, and I understand why. I definitely understand why. He has the story to back that claim up. Yep. That being said, I don't like his goatee.
Oh yeah, I mean, Italians.
Italians. That's it.
That's not racist because I'm also part Italian. I can say it.
My name is Italian, even though I am not one. So there we go. My dad really loved this Italian baseball player or something, and the deal was, if I was a girl, my mom would name me. If I was a boy, my dad would name me, and then he did the most dad thing possible.
Named you after a baseball player.
named me after a baseball player. How does that sound?
I love it. Let's move on to Assassin's Creed 3. So the biggest complaint I hear about this game is for 30% of it, like the beginning of it, you don't even play as the main character.
That's right. You okay.
Which I get for like the twist when we find out who this guy is, and then you're like, oh wow, and then we see like our main character, and then you see like the connections between them, and we're like, oh wow, this is complicated storytelling. Not really.
Okay, so here's the thing, right? I don't really, at first it does feel like a long time. I remember playing Assassin's Creed 3 for the first time, and I was playing as, I mean, all the trailers, you have the Native American, you have the, you know, the tomahawk and the assassin's hood and all that stuff, and then when you actually start the game, you're playing as this European, and who is clearly not the guy from the trailers, and you're just kind of like, who is this? So it does feel like a long time, but upon replays, it's really not that much time you spent playing as Haytham. You play as him for what should have been the prologue, and then, you know, you switch over to Connor. Now, here's the situation, though. With what was very long was the prologue. So that's the prologue with Haytham. The tutorial, though.
Oh, when he's like a kid?
Yes.
Yeah.
That was not necessary. You already essentially had the tutorial with Haytham's part, and then you continue tutorialing as with Connor as a kid.
I really hate it when games do that.
And then he's a teenager and he's still doing it, and then like halfway through the game, you finally get your assassin's robes, and then you're still kind of learning. You know, I don't think that was necessary. No. It definitely slowed the momentum of the game down. But I enjoy the story of Assassin's Creed 3. I enjoyed the modern segments of Assassin's Creed 3, and I also somewhat enjoyed Connor. So here's the thing, a lot of people have like a big issue with Connor. They're like, oh, he's too bland, he's not engaging. Okay. And I understand. A lot of these fans are coming like hot off the trails of Ezio, and then suddenly you have this very stoic, very, very cool-headed person. But here's the thing, like I don't think it's a flaw. That's who he is. Yeah. He's not a gentle giant, but he has that he's a brute. He's huge. He's built. But he's soft-spoken but most of the time he's soft-spoken. He's very stoic. He shows emotion very, like, he's reserved. You know, when he does show emotion, it's kind of like a soft smile or an expression of gratitude or something like that, and that's it. That doesn't make him a bland character, in my opinion.
No, that just means he's traumatized. He's definitely he got traumatized as a kid, and I don't know if this is real or not. Maybe it's a cultural thing too with Native Americans. I don't know if that. I mean, I feel like that's also. I'm sorry. I don't know if Ubisoft takes account the cultural significance of these characters. You know what I mean? Like
they do.
Okay.
Yes. So here's the thing. This is what's very cool about Assassin's Creed 3. Well, at the beginning of every single game, they have this little disclaimer, right, where it says. This game was made by a variety of different people with different religions and ethnic backgrounds and whatever, like different viewpoints and cultures and all that stuff. But the cool thing about Assassin's Creed 3 is that there are so for Native Americans, especially for I can't remember what tribe Connor belonged to, they actually did have Native American consultants for this game. Oh, okay. And yes, the songs that they sing when you're in Connor's home, those are real spiritual songs. When the languages that he speaks is a real language, but every single name in Native American culture, specifically for that particular tribe, is unique.
He's half Mohawk.
Okay, so the Mohawk tribe, every name that they bestow upon people is unique. There is no such thing as the same name twice. Right. So his Native American name, Radon Hagedon, is unique. It was specifically made for Connor. And I'm just going to keep calling him Connor for simplicity's sake. Yeah. But, Radon Hagedon, there's a lot of people pronounce it differently, even other Native Americans in the game. Connor himself pronounces it Radon Hagedon, so that's how I'm gonna pronounce it. That's his name, and that's how he pronounces it. That name was unique, and they took that into consideration. They didn't have to. They could have totally, especially back then when the social climate wasn't as, you know, like people could get away with a lot more insensitivity in that time. So the fact that Ubisoft took the extra step to be like, let's try to make this as realistic as possible. Let's have genuine cultural songs. Let's have an actual language that they speak with each other, and let's respect the customs of the Mohawk tribes, right? Of the Mohawk natives, where every name is unique. Connor's name is unique, and the way that he is, I don't believe that that's just because he's a Native American. I mean, it could be like, obviously, you know, they're a little less expressive in the game than the rest of the characters. But also, stoic people exist, period.
That's fair. Yeah.
You know, like Connor I just wasn't
sure like if Ubisoft took the cultural behaviors. I had the word earlier in my mind. I don't remember what it is. Like, I don't know what the right word is. Yeah.
Is it customs or?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, certain cultural customs to like each time period and each specific places and people, you know, like Middle Eastern, Italian, Native American. Like I didn't know if they really paid attention to that stuff.
For a lot of the ones that I've seen, at least, when in games when there are a, like, for example, Assassin's Creed 4, does not focus on any specific ethnicity or culture, but rather a multitude of them. But for those few characters that do show up that are, for example, the Edward's quartermaster, Adewale, he is a former slave who was born on a plantation. He had never been to Africa, and he has the plantation scars on his skin, which are like these 3 lines that back then a lot of slaves would do this. You know, they would go ahead and they would like either be marked or mark themselves to kind of remind themselves or something. And then at some point in the game, Edward is like, oh, you know, we're about to make a lot of money. Are you gonna go back to Africa after this? And Adewale laughs and he's like, I've never been to Africa. I was born in a plantation. And Edward goes, well, yeah, I mean, wouldn't you feel more welcome there? And Adewale goes, like you would feel more welcome in Paris. And, you know, he's like, okay, fair. I understand. I've never been to Paris. They would hate me over there. And Adewale is like, yeah, you know, this is, and it's true. That's kind of how the cultural norms were. There were a lot of people that were ignorant to certain things. So Assassin's Creed 3 shows that ignorance, but not as in like the game itself is ignorant. It shows that the people are ignorant, you know? It has characters like Charles Lee, who is unabashedly racist. Right. He calls Connor and his people savages and animals, and he doesn't treat them with respect. And there are a lot of things that were generally accepted back then as truths, which aren't truths, that he attributes to them because he's like, yeah, like I know about this. I know about you. You know, go dance with the wind or whatever. But then there are other characters like Hatham, who, you know, Connor's dad, who are more learned. You know, he's willing to work with the Native Americans. He even falls in love with Zio, Connor's mother, and, well, he gives her that nickname. I can't remember her full name, but yeah, Zio. And, you know, they have Connor, essentially. And he's genuinely devastated when he finds out that Connor's village was burned down and stuff. But they take a degree of cultural sensitivity when it comes to these types of topics. In Assassin's Creed 3, though, I didn't feel like Connor, you know, bringing it back to the original thing that I was talking about, I didn't feel like Connor was a bland character. He's definitely not my favorite character, but I do enjoy him as a character, and I feel for him a lot. It has one of like my this is overdone, but I do like the hero's journey thing that Connor does. You know, he's the call to action is, you know, after his village was burned down and he grows up a little bit, he sees a sign, he sees the assassin's emblem, and his village elder goes, you got to find this guy. He was friends with your mother. And so he leaves his, you know, that's his call to action. He leaves the village and he goes on this journey. And the American frontier is beautiful in Assassin's Creed 3. You know, he goes off and he eventually finds this house, this mansion in this homestead with the old angry mentor who refuses to train the young hero until the young hero proves himself in some way or another, and then the grumpy old mentor reluctantly agrees. And that was my favorite part of Assassin's Creed 3. Even though it was part of the too long prologue, it was still fun to see that little kind of chemistry between Connor and Achilles. You learn that the Assassin's Brotherhood had a very good foothold in the Americas early on, but by the time Connor gets there, they've been destroyed by the Templars, and you actually get to play as Haytham while he's setting up their downfall in the beginning, which is cool. The twist was cool. When
you're playing as a Templar.
You're playing as a Templar, and that's something I really like about this game. It kind of it shifts the narrative, because up until now the Templars have been laughably evil. They have just been cartoon villains, twirling their mustache and all that shit. But in Assassin's Creed 3, you not only do you get to see Haytham's point of view, you actually get to play as him, and to the point where when he's talking with his people, you don't find out he's a Templar until the very end of the prologue. He's talking with his people. He's talking about finding an artifact. He's talking about making setting things up so that these people in the New Americas could have a better vision and stuff. You think he's an assassin. I thought he was. Yeah. I thought that he was going to. I thought that the way this was going was that he was going to die and then pass on his teachings or his robes to Connor, and then that's how it was. No, he's a Templar.
Who was born from an assassin, because he still has the hidden blades and stuff like that, Yep. He has all the skills of an assassin because, yes, he is a descendant of an assassin, but he just grew up on the wrong side.
Haytham is an interesting character. I do like the Kenway storyline. Right. Because Haytham is overall an idealist. The Templars, essentially, their main goal is to control humanity for their own good. Meanwhile, the assassins are all about, no, freedom. You need everybody to be able to make their own choices. Yeah. And there's good and bad to both of those, Haytham does not agree with a lot of what the Templars do. Mm-hmm. So when he goes to the Americas, because he's originally from London, he was part of that Templar order. When he goes to the Americas, he gathers his own people, and then he goes, forget about London. We're doing it here, and we're doing it our way. People need to be safe, but they also need to be protected from themselves. We know everything. If we get these artifacts, then we can protect people. Mm-hmm. And that's his goal. He feels that the assassins are too idealistic in a way, without realizing that he himself is idealistic. And he feels that that's dangerous, and that they shouldn't have access to this, And also, he's like, okay, I don't feel bad about killing them, because the way they deal with things is by killing us. Yeah. So it's gray. It turns it very gray.
I like the complications in the relationship between Haytham and Connor, as we find out, because, he has daddy issues. Connor has daddy issues now, and he's forced to work with him for the later half of the game.
Yeah, they
never really trusting.
No, that's the thing though. So the reason they begin working together, if memory serves, is because Connor is chasing down a specific Templar, and then him and Haytham come to blows, and then he tells him, "Oh yeah, your people are evil. You don't know what you're talking about, Father." This is actually when they meet. And, he's like, you don't know what you're talking about. Look, this person, I can't remember what exactly he was doing, but he was doing some corrupt stuff. And Haytham is like, I'm chasing him as well. You think I don't keep my people in check? This dude does not stand for what the Templars stand. I'm trying to bring him down. And Connor's like, okay, well, we'll work together for now. And they do work together for a bit, and they start kind of forming a relationship. There's a really sweet scene where Haytham, they have to dress up, they have to disguise themselves, and Haytham kind of, fixes Connor's shirt, jacket or whatever, and then as they're walking into the place, they recognize Haytham, but then Connor's behind him, and then he's like, and who's this? And Haytham, without hesitation, he just goes, that's my son. Yeah. And you could see it in Connor's face, where he's just kind of taken aback a little bit. But they also have some funny scenes where there's the warehouse is burning, and Haytham is like, this won't open. All right, we need to figure out something. What are you doing? no. And then like, Connor is like getting back, and then he just rushes Hatham, and they pushes him through, and they both fall through the warehouse into the water, and it's funny.
Yeah, there's a lot of good moments in this game.
There are. The sad part is that their alliance doesn't really last because Connor at this point, he starts kind of feeling a little bit like he wants to have a relationship with his dad. He's like, maybe the Assassins and the Templars can work together, and he brings that to Achilles' attention, and Achilles is like sick and dying, and he's all like, this dude single-handedly destroyed the Assassin Order, man. Like, he is playing you. And Connor doesn't believe it at first until he said, George Washington, by the way, shout out, he's in the game.
And Sam Adams. And Thomas Jefferson, and Ben Franklin.
And Ben Franklin.
Paul Revere.
Lord, the foundingest of fathers. There's a lot of big names in this one.
Yes.
A lot of them. But Connor is essentially helping the Patriots because he was kind of friendly with Sam Adams, and Sam Adams helped him out and stuff. And, the Sons of Liberty kept calling on him, and he's like, hey, hold on, listen, we'll help you, but you got to help us with this revolution. I mean, look at what the Redcoats are doing. And so Connor kind of sort of gets involved. And because of that, he develops a friendship with George Washington. However, Hatham knows that it was George Washington who had ordered Connor's village to be burned because there were Mohawk natives in the area during the time who were assisting the British back then. So he said, take them out. And he didn't bother, which is, again, very realistic for the time. He didn't bother to find out which ones were helping the British and which ones weren't. So he just said, go into that area and just smoke them out, which is what he did. And it was disgusting, and it was terrible. A lot of innocent people died. And Hatham was just sitting on this information, though. So when they go to camp and they're talking to George Washington, he drops this bombshell on Connor to kind of be like, you see, you can't trust him. Connor, come with me.
I'm your father.
I'm your father. Come with me. Look at what this guy did. You think he didn't, come on. Trust me. Trust your daddy. And then Connor goes, wait a minute. You think I'm stupid? You were sitting on this information for this entire time until it was beneficial for you. And, he goes off on the pair of them. And there's a point where Hatham calls him son, and Connor just shuts that shit down. He's like, you think I'm so soft that, like, if you call me son, like, suddenly, like, I'll just fall? Like, no. I'm going to, I can't remember what it was. I think George Washington had probably done the same thing again. There were, like, the people in his village the warriors were rounding up because they were going to join the British to fight against, because the British promised them, their land. You get to keep your land. You get to do this and that. And George Washington was going to send a battalion against them. And Connor goes, yeah, no. I'm going to shut that shit down. If either of you follow me, you're dead. And he says it just like that. Maybe not just like that, but he says
exactly
that,
like that. Verbatim.
Verbatim. You're dead. And then their relationship right there just, falls apart.
It is complicated, but like, it's cool to see that in this type of game. An actual familial conflict happening in a game where it's all about you are taking the place of your ancestors, of your family members. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It works so well, too, with the modern day. And this is why I was saying that the modern day storyline was my favorite, because you have the situation with Connor and Hatham coming to a head. Meanwhile, the situation with Desmond and his father is also coming to a head.
Yeah.
In the modern day segments. And it ends in a bittersweet note. The actual Connor segment ends with the revolutionaries winning the war, but Connor seeing that, well, he had to kill his dad. Achilles died. Everybody who he knew is essentially, gone. And he sees that the revolutionaries won the war, but slavery still exists. And he went back home, and his people left that area because they needed to relocate. There was too much going on. So he's lost his family, he's lost his friends, he's lost his father, he's lost his mentor. And the revolutionaries won, but things aren't really that much better anyways. And it's a very sad ending for Connor. And then you go back to the modern day, and it's also a very sad ending for Desmond, because I don't recall too well like it's 2012, right? So the world was ending, the cataclysm was happening, and in order to stop it, Desmond had to touch the apple or something.
Yeah, not the apple, but like a panel. Yeah.
It was something that like burned his hand and killed him.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he sacrificed himself for everybody else. And it was just at the very precipice of him finally getting making up with his dad. And it's sad. Yeah. It's sad that Desmond just ends up sacrificing himself to save the entire world, and then nobody knows except them.
It's saving the world, but also dooming it to another evil, because Jupiter was also, when Desmond touches this thing, yes, the temple or whatever is going to save the world, but also then Jupiter, this AI, will be released from the temple she's contained in to then take over the world and like restart the whole slavery of the human race for their species or whatever.
It's something that gets touched upon in the later games, and it's it's a win and a loss. You either let Jupiter stay contained, but then the world ends, or you save the world and then hope that the people that come after you can deal with Jupiter.
Which is actually the theme of the entire series at this point, you know, because Ezio, Altair, and Connor both knew, or they all knew that, like, I'm prepping all this stuff, not for me, but for the next person. I don't know who is it going to be, but it's going to be someone.
It's very selfless. The themes of selflessness are definitely there.
Yeah.
And Connor dies because, just like Altair and Ezio before him, he found out that he was a character in a video game. and that's the story. But overall, the theme is bittersweet.
Yeah.
It's a bittersweet ending to Connor's story. It's a bittersweet ending to the overall modern day Desmond version. The modern day does continue, but since this, it's never, in my opinion at least, it's never been as intriguing. I haven't played Valhalla, and I haven't played Mirage. And I also have, like, I sort of played Odyssey, but I never finished it. So I'm not super versed in the modern day segments for those games.
Right. I know that we're not going to talk about it now, but that's a future episode. But I know that the assassin character you play as in 4 is an ancestor of Connor, right?
Yes.
Like the grandfather of his
Connor's
father.
No. He was Connor's grandfather.
Oh, okay. So that close. Damn.
Yeah. He was Edward Kenway during the golden age of piracy.
Right.
He was a pirate. And then after the events of the game, he goes back to London, gets married, has a son, Haytham, tries to raise him up in the way the assassins would be raised. But before he gets to reveal that to him, he gets killed. And then, Haytham, the people who killed him, which are the Templars, raise Haytham and tell him, hey, actually, your father was a Templar. That's why he was teaching you all these things. And, just to wrap it up, since we're still kind of in the topic of Haytham, there is a book called Forsaken, which is the novelization of the Assassin's Creed 3 game. The majority of Assassin's Creed games have novelizations, by the way. I don't know if you knew that.
I did not know that.
Yeah, they do. And they're actually really good because they give you a little bit more insight into the minds and the inner machinations of the characters. And for 3, it's called Forsaken, and it's essentially Connor, after the events of the game, finding Haytham's journal, and then, he reads through Haytham's past, then the events of the game through Haytham's eyes, and then, the very last thing he wrote, which was like, tomorrow I'm, we're going to do this. I know Connor's going to be there. I'm going to have to kill him, or maybe he might kill me, But in that little journal, he talks about how in between the prologue and then when the actual third game, like Connor portion starts, he finds out that his father was an assassin, that he was lied to, and he goes back to London, kills the Templar that killed his father and then raised him as a Templar, but he can't reconcile his beliefs with those of the assassins. Right. So he remains a Templar, and he's like, but I'm going to do it my way.
Yeah.
And that's,
I think pretty... Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, I was just going to say that Haytham is an even more complex character than the game itself presents. But,
right.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that I think it's crazy. Like the Ezio trilogy, what that does, we get to play as one specific character for their entire life, get to see their entire journey, and that's great. But I think it's also cool that for 3 and Black Flag, we get to play as a whole family.
Yeah.
You know?
You get to play as 3 generations of Kenways.
Yeah. So I just think that's interesting. I was going to ask a question, but I kind of read this on Wikipedia and kind of answered it myself. The question was going to be like, so since Desmond is dead,
yeah,
the next game is a new person called Noob, a Stergo researcher. Great. How is a new person going back into the memories of Desmond's ancestor? How does that make sense? But I just read that Abstergo has refined the technology to allow it.
Essentially, there is an explanation, and I would love to. I want to do another episode so we can really get into it.
Yeah, we will.
The Spark Notes version is that they recovered Desmond's body, they used his sample, and then the people that you play in the following games, up until Origins, I think, is you.
Oh, you the player.
Yes, you the player are the person who plays the modern thing. And, Abstergo's essentially using Desmond's DNA to have all these... It's a whole office of people in computer animuses researching people, and it's kind of...
Like the real-life equivalent of people playing video games.
Literally. That's exactly what it is. But, we'll get
how
up
I feel
that.
about that.
We should discuss it in a different episode because it is a discussion that is at least 30 minutes long in and of itself.
Got it. Okay. Any final thoughts before we wrap it up? Any other little things you want to say about this pentology?
I believe that it had a rocky start, but overall it really did. They managed to create such a fantastic franchise that even though it fell down, in my opinion, hard after 4, it's still such a beloved and talked about franchise, specifically because of the characters themselves. Not even always because of the game. Like I said before, Assassin's Creed 1 is fun to play, very repetitive, nothing groundbreaking. And Assassin's Creed Revelations is also just more of the same thing that you played in Brotherhood with like 2 or 3 new things.
Right.
But the characters and the story are what drive this machine forward. And I applaud Ubisoft for having done that. I don't know what happened going forward, but at the very least with this pentology plus Assassin's Creed 4, it was literature on screen.
Yeah, I just think it's cool to be an assassin, right? Like
that too.
It's cool to be able to do assassin-like stuff in different time periods, and to me that's the biggest draw. That's the only reason why I would continue to play these games. That's the only reason why I started playing these games, so regardless of all the complications and weirdness of the origins of mankind and stuff like that, that doesn't really matter at the end of the day.
No.
Are you having fun killing people in Jerusalem? Cool. Are you having fun killing people in Italy? Cool. So on and so forth. Hell yeah.
I would say that if you truly want to, if you've never played an Assassin's Creed game before and you truly want to get the most out of the experience and feel like an assassin without a whole lot of the modern day stuff kind of bogging you down, you should play Assassin's Creed 2 because it has the most time spent as the actual titular protagonist. And I believe the only times you actually are drawn into the modern day are like 3 times. One of them at the very beginning, then another second time somewhat in like the end of the first act, and then it's just straight flashback up until the very end.
Right. And then you might as well just play the other 2 games that comes after it.
You might as well
just play the Ezio trilogy.
Just play the trilogy. It's out right now, remastered kind of.
Kind of.
Sort of.
All right, that's all the time we have for today, guys. Thank you so much for joining us on another episode here on the Razzle Dazzle Show. Please let us know what you think about this episode somewhere on the internet. And make sure to follow us on Instagram at Razzle Dazzle Show, on TikTok at Razzle_Dazzle_Show, and on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Raz_Daz_pod. Be sure to leave us 5-star ratings and a nice little written review down below, and we'll catch you on the next one. Next time on The Razzle Dazzle Show. It feels like we're just trying to get the assassin stuff that's on each island over with, like the story stuff over with, so we can get back on the ship, sail, and sing sea shanties. That's
Honestly,
what I feel
yeah.
like this game is.
That's what it feels like that a lot of the time. It genuinely feels like that.
Just getting through the missions so we can continue sailing. That's it. Which is, again, the best part of the game.
It's super fun. I cannot express how fun it is to get on your ship and then have them like singing, and then you see another ship and you take over it and you either press them to service or destroy it or send it to your fleet, and then back on the ship, back to singing. Oh, there's a whale there. Okay, let's do some whaling.
Tune in next week.